introduce myself first. My name is Jeannie Hall, and I work for Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. I do benefit analysis for Employment First consumers, so I get referrals from counselors that work in the office to do benefit analysis. And towards the end of the presentation, we'll talk more about what a benefit analysis is and what point you should request one. So I'm going to do the first. Okay, I'm going to do the first part of the presentation and talk about the different types of Social Security benefits. So there are two main types of Social Security benefits. And each side of the slide here is a comparison. It's like a comparison of each type. Title 16 benefits, also more commonly known as Supplemental Security Income or SSI benefits. So SSI is a needs-based program. It has there's a resource limit. So if you're receiving SSI benefit, you can't have over $2,000 in resources. That does not include the house you live in or a car you use to drive to and from work. So that's separate from that. That doesn't count. You are typically, with SSI, going to apply and be eligible for Medicaid. When you work, and we'll talk about this in much more detail in a few minutes, but when you work, your work income is going to reduce the amount of your Social Security benefit check each month. The full benefit amount for this year, 2016, is $733. So that's the maximum an individual can receive in SSI benefits this year. Title II disability benefits are Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI, and childhood disability benefits. There are like some other types, there's widow's benefit and some other stuff, but it's not as common, and we're going to kind of talk about the main ones that you would see most commonly. So SSDI and CDB benefits it's an insurance program. So the money that you receive as a disabled individual when you become eligible for this type of benefit comes from the money that you paid into Social Security when you were working. If it's SSDI, if it's CDB, the money comes from one of your parents has paid into Social Security when they were working. So there's no resource limit for Title II benefits. You become eligible for Medicare 24 months after the first check that you receive in benefits. When you work for Title II benefits, your work income could cause your check to stop entirely, and we'll talk more about that. But basically, in contrast to SSI, it's not going to be reduced based on your income. You're either going to be eligible to receive the whole benefit check amount or not receive it. And your benefit amount in these programs depends and varies a lot because it depends, again, because it's based on what you paid into Social Security your parent has, so it depends on how much they've worked and how much money they've paid into the system. Oh, and also how many other people might be eligible under that record that might be drawing benefits from it. So this is just to start to get into how employment affects the different types of benefits. SSI is generally what you can say is it's going to be your SSI check is going to be reduced by $1 for every $2 you earn after $85. So basically, Social Security will disregard the first $85 you make in a month. It's not going to affect your benefit amount, and then after that, it's reduced by $1 for every $2 you earn. And then obviously, so depending on how much you earn in a month, your SSI check will fluctuate. With Title II benefits, the SSDI or CDB, your full benefit check is going to continue, and you're going to receive that full benefit amount as long as the work that you perform, so the money you've earned in a month, is under what Social Security considers substantial gainful activity. They refer to it as SGA level. So each year there's a dollar amount that they assign, that Social Security assigns, and they consider that SGA. So this year, 2016, that's $1,130. So as long as you make under that in a month, you're still going to be eligible to receive your full benefit check.
Is that gross, or
Gross,
like
yes.
if they have like a retirement plan and the young adults have the ability to pay into that,
Right.
would that affect this as far as the
Yeah.
adjusted gross income number?
No, that won't adjust, it's just gross, whatever your gross is before taxes or anything else, anything else is taken out. So, although we'll talk about it more, there are ways that, Social Security, there are other work incentives that where Social Security will not count some of your earnings in certain situations. So it's not exactly a flat, it's not exactly a hard and fast rule like the 1,130, but that's kind of a starting point. So, and we'll talk about it more too. So a little bit more detail on SSI benefits. This is the formula that Social Security uses when you're working and receiving SSI. So first, they're actually going to look at two things. They're going to look at your unearned income and your earned income. So unearned income, not everyone's going to have unearned income, but it could be, for example, someone who's actually, because you can be eligible for both SSI and a Title II benefit at the same time. So Social Security is going to consider any other benefit, like the Title II benefit you receive, as unearned income. So they're going to count that as income per month. They're going to count all but $20 of that. So that's why it's unearned income, and they're going to subtract 20. And that is what they'll consider your countable unearned income. And they're going to look at your earned income from work. So your gross earnings, and how I talked about $85 before, that's technically broken up into two income exclusions. The earned income exclusion, $65, and then, not to be too confused, but if you don't have the unearned income, they'll take the $20 off the earned income for 85. They're going to add those two numbers together, or if there's just the earned income, they're going to take that amount. They're going to divide that by 2. They're going to divide the earned income by 2, sorry, and then they're going to take that total and subtract it from $733. And that's how much your new SSI check amount is going to be. So this next slide is an example, and it's hard to read on here, but it's in your notebooks. We have all the slides in there, actually. I should have mentioned that at the beginning. So that first section should, it's like the fifth, let me see. It's like the 5th page back, maybe. Yeah, okay. So you can see it a little bit more easily. What we talked about on the last slide, but it's just an example of how they would calculate their SSI check. So in this example, the person is they're working 20 hours a week and earning minimum wage, which is $8.10 an hour. So per month, that's $701 gross earnings per month. So you notice the zeros in the top section, because in this situation, we're going to say they don't have any unearned income, so it's just their earned income from work. So they're going to take that amount, $701, where it says GIE is the general income exclusion of $20. So they're going to subtract 20 from that to leave $681. And they're going to subtract the earned income exclusion of $65. So that comes off at $616. And then they're going to take that amount and divide it in half, divided by 2. So the person's really earned $701 gross anyway. They're only going to, Social Security is only going to count $308 of that. So you go down to the SSI base rate, like I said, $733. Typically, you're going to subtract the $308 from that, leaving $425, and then so that's the amount of their new SSI check amount in that case. What will happen is, say someone starts working, and say this is their first month working. So they earn this month in March $701. They're going to report that to Social Security by the 6th of April. So by the 6th of the following month, they're going to report, this is how much I made in March for the month, or how much I received in earnings. Social Security will then do this calculation, and their check the next month in May will reflect those earnings. So their May check will be $425. So there's going to be a little bit of a lag. So the SSI checks are always 2 months behind earnings. That bottom section just shows basically how you're going to come out ahead with SSI, because you're only going to receive $425 in SSI instead of the $733. However, you're going to add your earnings from work together with that, and you're going to have more at the end of the month. You'll have over 1,000. Any questions about that? So that's SSI and earnings, and like we talked about, Title II benefits, completely different. So SSDI, CDB, for example, as long as your earnings are under the SGA limit for the year, in this case 1,130 for this year, you're going to keep your full benefit check amount. You're going to be eligible for it and receive it. So then that second section, we're going to talk more about the other work incentives that could affect that in more detail later. So so same situation with earnings. This is going to be an example. This is an example for the Title II benefit check, someone who's receiving that. So say this person's receiving a childhood disability benefit of $994. They start working, same as the other example, 20 hours a week, minimum wage, so they're earning $701 a month. Much more simple than SSI. $701 is less than the SGA level, $1,130 per month, so they're going to be able to keep their entire Social Security check. So they're going to have almost $1,700 at the end of the month.
The SGA level is a monthly level or an annual?
It's a monthly level, yes, $1,130 per month, yeah.
Social Security do change it every year. Hello everyone, my name is Natasha Olinger and I work for Warren County Board of DD. I'm the work incentive coordinator here and I also do benefits analyses as well. I will review the work incentives for both programs. I will discuss the Title 16 program first. Under Title 16, the impairment-related work expense, also referred as IRWE. Social Security deducts work expenses related to an individual's disability from their earnings, before determining if they're still eligible for benefits. These items or services must be purchased by the worker. The expenses may include the cost of any service item the individual needs to work. Some examples are prescription drugs, transportation to and from work, a personal care attendant, a wheelchair, or even specialized equipment. The cost will be deducted from the month of purchase to increase the SSI check. Student earned income exclusion also is a work incentive under Title 16. Students under the age of 22 can exclude up to $1,780 of earned income per month. The maximum annual exclusion is $7,180 per year. By using the exclusion, working students are able to protect their SSI check from being reduced. A definition of a student is students who are in the grades of 7 through 12, attending school at least 12 hours per week, in college for at least 8 hours per week, or in a training program to prepare for employment for at least 12 hours per week. Are there any questions regarding the student earned income exclusion or the impairment related expense?
You have the resource limit of $2,000, but then you have the exclusion that goes into that.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
You have a resource limit of $2,000 under SSI.
Correct.
Under SCIE, you've got a different exclusion limit regarding income.
Correct.
But then what happens if they save some of that and
They still have to meet that resource
they
guideline.
still can't have more than $2,000 in their account?
Right, correct.
Okay. Now, if wherever they're working has a retirement plan, is the money back, does that count against them as part of the resource fund?
I believe it's only if they can take it, if it's accessible to them. Is that right, Jenny?
Liquid assets, right? Liquid assets are part of the $2,000 resource limit, not qualified monies in the 401k plan or the ABLE Act, which is going to be coming into play. So that'll be excluded. Okay, gotcha.
Any other questions related to this topic? Yes.
So, like college and university, I mean, is that, I don't know if you're familiar with FOU.
I'm not personally familiar with FOU.
I'm just wondering, you know, like my son, it's a after high school program, 4 years. I mean, is that something that's included?
You would probably have to contact Social Security directly and provide them with the information regarding the program, and they can determine if that would count as, that will fall under this program for a work incentive.
Natasha,
Yes.
what if somebody's employed now, leaves work and goes to college for a while, is already receiving SSI? How is that gonna be something under this student?
Yes, they can access this under the student. They'll just notify Social Security that they're no longer working, so their SSI check can be recalculated.
Okay.
And then also to get the work incentive for the student earning income exclusion.
Okay, so that's all through SSI, that's,
Yes.
okay.
Any other questions? I will move on to Title II, Social Security Disability and CDB Work Incentive. The impairment-related work expenses also included under this program as well. Certain expenses for things that the individual needs due to his or her disability in order to work. These items or services must be purchased by the worker. Examples are interpretive services, personal care services, or transportation costs. Again, this is to help reduce them, to keep them under the SGA level of $1,130. There's also a work incentive called subsidies and special conditions. Social Security considered the existence of subsidies and special conditions when making an SGA determination. Social Security uses earnings that represent the real value of work performed to decide if an individual is working at SGA level. A subsidy is a support or accommodation provided by the employer for a worker to be successful. Examples are less work, easier job duties, lower expectations, extra help or supervision, or more frequent breaks. Special conditions refer to supports provided by someone other than the employer, such as a job coach, fall loan, counseling, or adaptive equipment. And this is to help them stay below the SGA level. So if you have someone that's earning close to this amount or just want to hit this amount, this is when you want to access those work incentives to get them below. Again, Social Security has to approve the work incentive, so you have to provide the information to Social Security. If you're going to utilize any of the impairment-related work expenses where the work is paying for items, you want to keep receipts and provide that to Social Security each month. Any questions regarding any of the services that will fall under the subsidies and special conditions? Title II has a trial work period. This allows individuals to test their ability to work to continue to receive their disability check. A trial work period consists of 9 months and a 60-month rolling period. During the trial work period, individuals receive full benefits regardless of how much they earn, as long as they continue to have a disability impairment. Social Security will count a month as a trial work month, and if the gross earnings are over $810 for the month. And this is the amount for 2016. After the trial work period is over, there's an extended period of eligibility. And this is a 36-month period in which an individual can still work and receive a disability check for any month that the earnings are over the SGA level. The individual will not receive a check if their earnings are above the SGA level during this time. So during that 36 months, even if you go above the SGA level, you'll still be entitled to your benefit, but you wouldn't be entitled to a cash benefit that month. I'm sorry, I forgot to move the slides, guys. Next up is Medicaid, and Jeannie's going to speak on that.
I'm going to talk a little bit about Medicaid, the different types of Medicaid. There's Medicaid for the disabled, and there's you can have what's kind of generally referred to as community Medicaid, just like typical Medicaid that someone who has a disability could receive. With that type of Medicaid, you could be subject to a spend down. Waiver Medicaid is, so if your individual has a Medicaid waiver, so like the level 1 waiver, the IO waiver, there's, when you hit a certain income level with that, you could be subject to a patient liability, similar to a spend down, but it's a kind of like a copay, I guess you could say, that you pay to your waiver service provider each month if your income, total income is over a certain level. Right now that's $1,495. So as long as your earnings, or your total income I should say, because it counts any Social Security check you receive and any earned income from work, the total of those, as long as it's under $1,495, you wouldn't be subject to the patient liability. Again, resource limit, Medicaid has a resource limit like SSI, but it's $500 less, it's $1,500 right now. That actually is supposed to change later this year and be the same as the SSI. The resource limit is up to $2,000. So, another Medicaid program that I highly recommend to pretty much anyone who is working and has a disability, I would recommend that they enroll in the Medicaid buy-in program. The Medicaid buy-in program has been around since 2008, and it was started as a way, kind of an incentive and to help people who have disabilities and encourage them to work and not allow them to not lose their Medicaid. So a lot of people were not wanting to work because they didn't want to lose their eligibility for Medicaid. So the Medicaid buy-in, I'm going to talk a little bit more. This is kind of a summary slide. You have to be working to be eligible. You can have it in conjunction, like if you have a waiver, it doesn't affect anything about your waiver. You still have the waiver benefit through the county board, and you have Medicaid coverage. It has a much, as you can see, much higher resource limit. So this number changes each year, it goes up a little, but for right now it's 11,473. So a lot better than the $1,500. So you can save. If you're working, you can save more money and still be eligible, still keep your Medicaid eligibility.
So would you be with SSDI then with that?
You can, yeah.
You wouldn't be able to be with SSI because of the limit, right?
Yeah, well, you have to stay, if you get SSI, if you're getting an SSI check, you have to stay under the 2,000, yes, that's a good point, yes. Okay, so, to talk about, it's called 1619B Medicaid, and this is actually a Medicaid work incentive. So if you have Medicaid coverage and you're receiving an SSI check, when your earnings hit the limit, hit the amount where when you don't receive an SSI check anymore, so basically that calculation we talked about before, when that zeroes it out and you're not eligible for a cash SSI benefit any longer, you don't lose your Medicaid. I think a lot of people think that or are afraid of that, I think. So what happens is you're switched into a different Medicaid status called 1619B. So you're able, because you're still technically eligible for SSI if your earnings change, you're also still eligible to receive Medicaid coverage. So even if you're not getting a cash check that month, you can keep your Medicaid coverage. So there are some qualifications that I list out here. You have to have been eligible for an SSI cash payment for at least 1 month before, or you're not eligible for one, I guess. You have to still meet the disability requirement that Social Security has. So when Social Security has the periodic medical reviews, they have to determine that you're still disabled. It doesn't apply if they determine that you're not disabled and eligible anymore for SSI. So basically, the reason you're not getting an SSI check has to be just due to your earnings going too high, not because you have too many resources or because you're not disabled. You have to keep the resource level under 1,500, and you have to keep you have to be eligible still for Social Security's disability standards. You have to meet the Medicaid needs or use test, which I don't detail out there, but from what I can tell, it's pretty hard not to meet that. It's either you're using it, you're relying on Medicaid to pay for stuff, when you go to the doctor already, so you need it essentially to help pay your medical bills. Or if you're not using it on a regular basis, you just have to show that you would need it if something were to happen to you, you would need to have that coverage. Your total yearly annual income has to be under the threshold. That changes each year too. You can pick up $38,509 right now, so for 2016. And resources have to stay below 1,500. So a little bit more detail about the Medicaid buy-in program I talked about before. So Medicaid buy-in for workers with disabilities. The qualifications for that, you have to be between the ages of 16 to 64, have a disability, working full or part-time. It doesn't matter how much, as long as you're getting paid and taxes are coming out of it, and you could be only earning like $10 a month, it counts. You're getting a paycheck and paying taxes, you're employed. So that meets that eligibility requirement. Your resources have to be under the 11,473 this year. And your income, there's an income limit, 29,700, which is 250% of the federal poverty level. But notice it says countable gross income. So they'll apply some similar equations like they do with the SSI check calculation, where they're going to count less than half. So you can actually have earnings that are higher than that, as long as your countable doesn't exceed the 29. So really you can make a good amount of money and still stay eligible for this Medicaid program. The advantages of it, it eliminates the patient liability. So in a situation where someone has Medicaid and a Medicaid waiver through the county board, that patient liability I talked about before that they would have to pay if their total income was over $14.95 in a month. Medicaid buy-in regulations say that doesn't apply. There's no patient liability or spend down if you have Medicaid with a spend down if you're in the Medicaid buy-in program. So that's a huge advantage for people. And again, the higher resource limit of over $11,000 is obviously a great advantage. But like you pointed out, you do have to be careful. If you're getting an SSI check and you still are getting a monthly check and you want to stay eligible, you do still have to stay under the SSI resource limit of 2,000. You want to stay eligible for both. Okay, and then, I can't remember. So the Medicare, so talk about Medicare quickly. A Medicare work incentive. So now we're kind of going back to someone who gets a Title II disability benefit and they're receiving Medicare. They have Medicare coverage. So as long as you still have a disabling condition, even if once you stop being, if or when you stop being eligible to get a benefit check, so say you're earning over the SGA limit and there's no, even with IRWs or anything else, it's still over and you're not eligible to get that cash check. You're not going to get that Title II check anymore because your earnings are too high. You can keep Medicare coverage for at least 8.5 years after returning to work at the SGA level. So that includes like that 9-month trial work period and then beyond. So really a very long time. Obviously, you can keep Medicare coverage. And then just to remind, that second is just as long as you're getting the Title II check still, you're going to keep being eligible for Medicare. They go together. So.
So one thing I find with that work disabled individuals don't realize that Medicare is going to stop at some point once they have lost that benefit. So they get kind of surprised 8.5 years later that they're getting a letter from Social Security indicating that they're no longer eligible for Medicare. Just something to keep in mind if you have an individual that's stopped working, to keep track of that.
Okay, I'm hand it over to Tammy now to talk about benefit analysis and.
Hello, I'm Tammy Disney. I'm from Montgomery County, and we all are certified work incentive counselors. We actually got sent to the a national training, a week training, where we actually had to go and do intensive training about Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and other benefits. So it's a lot of information, and it took us about a year to actually get our full certification. So they basically make sure that we know what we're telling you guys. So that's what we do. We do benefits analysis. And what we would do is then, once your sons or daughters begin working or are looking up to work, and they want to know how working is going to affect their benefits, that's when we can come in and actually sit down with you and go over and figure out exactly which type of benefit you're already receiving, which benefits you might be eligible for, and look at some of the work incentives and give you guys some suggestions on how maybe to use all of the work incentives. Social Security is very interested in individuals with disabilities working. They really believe that everybody can work and should be working, and they realize that a lot of times people choose not to work because they're afraid to lose benefits. And that's kind of what we're doing, is looking at all of the benefits and how each person has different types of benefits and types of working, and we will be the ones that can actually sit down and help work through that. The way that you would get to us is most everybody has a service and support administrator in your county. You can ask to be referred to us. Sometimes we would do a full benefits analysis report. Sometimes it may be just that we want a resource, you want to ask a question. You may not be ready to make that next step, but you may want to be looking into certain things, and that's something that we can do too. So what we do is we confirm all the benefits. So we will get some releases from your sons or daughters or your guardians from Social Security, so that we can find out exactly what type of benefit that the individual is receiving, whether it's Title II or whether it's SSI. Because as you can tell, they look alike, they kind of sound alike, but they are not alike. And so depending on which type of benefit you get is how we would decide which way that we would suggest that you go. And the only way we would know that is by getting the information from Social Security. It also will tell us if any of the trial work periods have already been used or not. And that's kind of important, because an individual gets 9 trial work periods per disability in a 5-year period. So if once you're out of the 9 trial work period months, the very next month that you go over SGA, your benefit, your Title II benefit will stop. So that's very important that we know where you are in the process of the work, in the trial work period, and then we can start counting at that as it goes. Work incentives are very, very huge. They can bring down the income. A lot of our individuals, when you talk to them, you'll ask them, if they're using any work incentives, and a lot of people would say no. And that's kind of where you kind of have to look at what exactly is happening. Is there somebody that's monitoring them? Are they getting a little extra supervision? Are there 10 tasks in the job, but they're only required to do 6? If that's the case, then we can present to Social Security that the person is getting a subsidy of special conditions, and then they will only count the amount of money that they're actually considered working for. And so we're not saying that to employers that we want our individuals not to work. We're just saying that Social Security allows for individuals to get these work incentives so that they can continue to work. All right. Another thing that's important to know about Social Security is that really reporting is key. If the individual is getting SSI, make sure that you're reporting the income by the 6th of the month after it's earned so that they can adjust that SSI check. If they're getting a CDB or Title II SSDI, they only really need to report it once they start getting close to SGA, or if they're in their trial work period, the trial work period amount. And that is because if you don't report to Social Security and then like a year later they find out that their person was making over SGA, they will then stop benefits and then possibly have a payback situation where not only will you not get a check, they will then say that they owe money back. So we want to make sure that we're upfront with Social Security and that we're reporting things as they're happening. You should always keep copies of everything you get from Social Security, all the letters. If you have questions about what's in the letter, you can certainly call one of us and we can try to help negotiate that or figure out what it is. Jobs and Family Services is another place that you will get for the Medicaid and food stamps. If you're getting any other type of benefit like HUD housing, VA benefits, I mean there's lots of other benefits out there that somebody could possibly be getting, and we need to just know some of them are income based and some of them are not. So we just need to know exactly what the individual's benefits are so that we can help give you guys a picture of how the working is going to affect your benefits. All right, if you get a check and you don't think you should have gotten a check, or your sons or daughter get a check and you think, oh, this is too much, or I don't think I should have got one, please don't just go and spend it. You probably need to call Social Security because at some point they will catch up with you and they will make you pay back. So it's very important that you just keep track of everything. If you talk to somebody at Social Security, write down their name and the date that you call. It's not binding, but at least it gives you, if you get another letter that you can say, okay, I called and talked to, I talked to Mrs. Disney and this is what she said. It kind of allows you that you're making a good faith effort. Another exciting thing that we're just now finding out about is called the ABLE Act, and it's kind of in lieu of a special needs trust. It is a way, it's called Achieving a Better Life Experience Account, and it's a way for individuals to put money into an account that does not get counted for Social Security and for Medicaid purposes. It's kind of similar to the 429 plans where 529, I'm sorry, that can be put into the account. I always call it 429. With this account, it's just now being, it's in place, but the banks are still negotiating how they're going to administer it. So once it happens, then individuals can put their money into this account, and they can use it for things other than what a special needs trust can be used for. Special needs trusts are basically can only be used for things that are up and beyond special, can't be used for rent, can't be used for food, can't be used for tuition. The ABLE account is allowing that money to be used for that kind of stuff. So it's exciting because it makes it so that other people, or that you can use the money for real-time needs instead of extras. And that's what basically a lot of times that's what you want the money to be used for. So it allows the individual to save money without losing benefits. The income in the account is not federally taxed, which is important too, because that money will probably accrue interest. And up to $14,000 per year can be contributed to with a maximum of $415,000 in an account. So it's huge, and it's a way for parents, relatives who in the past have kind of been told, don't leave anybody any money because it can affect their benefits. This ABLE Act is allowing them to be able to have money in their account and then they can use that to pay for some of their costs.
Hey Tammy, the legislation wasn't in play, Steve, a couple weeks ago, has Ohio finalized the legislation for this yet?
Not yet.
Well, I mean, because federally it was passed last year, but the state had to pass its own version, just like the 529 had to be passed, the state had to have its own version of the rules regarding the plan. So,
Yes, and we were told that it was gonna happen early spring. Well, it's now spring and we're still having, we're just getting more information about it. I actually did call the bank because I had somebody that was interested in it, and they were saying that they pretty much are still out there. They don't know what they're doing with this yet either. Unfortunately, it takes time for legislation and the rules to be. So once it does happen, we will hopefully get the information out to all of the parents that it's happened. So yeah, Ohio, it's not been fully finalized just yet.
From our understanding, it's only going to be a couple different banks that's going to have the Able account.
what was that?
From my understanding, it's not going to be all the banks that's going to have the Able account available, it's just going to be certain lines.
It'll probably be available like a 529. I mean, you'll be able to go to advisors like me or a bank or whoever. BlackRock does the 529s to the state. The state has its own version of the 529 that you get tax discounts on. So it'll probably be something similar is what I've been told, because I've talked to the state legislator about it, some of the people working on the legislation, but it's still not here. So, you know, and one of the things I talked to him about was, since these are for people with special needs, to make the accounts institutional shares where there's no front-end load. In 529, you have a front-end sales charge to buy the shares of whatever they're investing in, which is stupid for this particular type of account. But they've got to write it that way on the front end so that the companies offering it, like BlackRock or Fidelity, whoever, can offer it without those extra charges built into it.
Absolutely, and we're kind of at the mercy of the people that are writing and the banks that are legislating this and trying to get it together. So hopefully it'll happen. But it is exciting because, you know, special needs trust kind of ties up the money and it only can be used for, you know, Bengals tickets and, you know, lots of extra stuff. And, you know, therefore somebody could not be able to pay their rent, but they can go buy a Bengals ticket, which makes no sense. This ABLE Act will allow people to live better because they'll be able to afford better rent, and they'll be able to pay for their education, they'll be able to pay for transportation, employment services if they need some assistance, health, preventative and wellness. The special needs trust could not be used for anything that Medicaid would pay for, whereas I think this one they're saying, this account they're saying is it's their money, let's let the individual choose what they want to pay for.
Well, it doesn't affect their limits either. Their
If there is
resource
some limits.
It's outside the resource limits, which is helpful.
All right. So it talks about the treasurer's office is currently working on designing the part of the Ohio ABLE, and the goal is 2016, so we're in 2016. There's some resources here. There's another program that we wanted just to touch base with. It's called DB, Disability Benefits 101, which is a website that is out there now that you can actually go online and put in information, and it has a lot of information about Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. The caution about that is, though, is that it's only as good as the information you put in there. So if you put in wrong information, you're probably going to get wrong information out. So, but it has a lot of good information if that's where you wanted to go and like research or start to figure out what it is that you, what the next step should be. We can help manipulate that if you would like that also. And but it's very exciting. And like I said, Social Security is really interested in individuals working. Our Employment First is an initiative that is here, and we're trying to make sure that individuals are getting jobs in the community and making sure that they're not choosing to work just because they're going to lose their benefits. Because as you can see, there's a lot of benefits that they're going to be able to keep, even though they will be working. We just need to make sure that we know exactly what that plan is. Yes.
So my son works and he gets social security disability, and I'm always panicked because I'm getting over that $1,500 mark. So will I be able to take some of that money and put it in an ABLE account and then his regular account, or is this other monies that are coming in other than those?
I believe it's his money, he can put money into it, if that's where he needs to put the money in. If he were to do the Medicaid buy-in for workers with disabilities, and if he's getting a CDB check, then he could have up to $11,000 resources. If he's getting SSI, that's where they kind of look at the 2,000. But if he's getting a CDB check, getting on the Medicaid buy-in for workers with disabilities, even if he has no premium, that resource limit is high. That's a huge incentive. It's vastly underutilized. Everybody probably on a disability that's working should probably be on the workers with disability.
So when you actually ask your person at Medicaid that you want to be in the Medicaid buy-in, then what happens? Because I've done that and nothing's happened. Are you get paperwork in the mail or?
Did they ask you to turn in his pay information?
Yes.
Okay. What they do is they take that information, they have a computation, because I asked them to explain it to me one day, and the lady's like, I don't know, I just plug in the numbers and it tells me what the, so she's like, good luck. But there is a computation, they put that information in there, and then you should receive a letter that says what his patient liability, or I'm sorry, what his premium will be. And then the county boards, we also get notice of everybody's patient liability if they're on a waiver. And so we should be able to verify that they're on a premium, because it will no longer come as a patient, or a patient liability will say a $2 premium or a $3 premium. Now, once you have a premium, though, you need to pay that premium every month. It's like it's like an insurance policy. If you don't pay it, you're not insured. So patient liability is a little bit different because you were paying the provider for the services that they were receiving, whereas Medicaid, the premium is actually turning the Medicaid on. So make sure that you do that premium, but it's going to be vastly smaller than whatever the patient liability is.
And it could take about a month or so for that to Medicaid buy. I can submit the application and you look at how to do
I have a son who has not been working a year yet out in the community. SSI, Medicaid, I believe he has the ability to put money into a 401k through his work, through his part-time work.
As long as he's working and putting into a 401k, it's not an asset because you can't get to it as long as you're working. If they ever were to separate from the company, then that money is accessible to him, then that's when you would have to move it probably out of the 401k. Because it would be considered an asset at that time. But it would be an asset for any of us if we separate. As long as you're working and putting into it, you can't get to it till you retire or you separate from the company. But if you separate, that's when it could possibly come up as being an asset because you can take it out. But yes, they want people
So
to
he can
put in the
actually do
401ks. They want individual with disabilities to live like the rest of us, invest in their future. But it's just a little bit tricky if they ever were to separate, because then that money becomes an asset, and then you have to
Not technically, because they could potentially, a lot of employers will let you leave the money in the 401k plan for up to 10 years, sometimes longer, depending on the employer. And then you can always roll it out into an IRA, which also qualifies, so you don't have to get access to it, technically.
All right, well, we're a little bit fast tonight.
I apologize if you answered this earlier. If somebody has funds in a 529 account, would that count as part of their assets? I don't know.
It's, in my understanding, it's not an excluded account. An ABLE account for somebody with disabilities, an ABLE account is going to be an excluded account. So it's as if that money's not there. They don't count it against the other benefits. A 529 is like having a checking or savings account. You can get to it, yeah, you'll pay a penalty for getting to it early, but it's not listed as an excluded account for that purpose. Now, could they use, who's the owner of the 529? If you're the owner, or the grandparents are the owner, and it's only the benefit of the child, then technically the child doesn't own that money. The owner of the account owns the money. And the owner of the account can pass it on to another child, they could use it for themselves. I want to take a pottery class as a 50-year-old balding male, because I just want to, right? I want to pay for it, and it's an educational class. I can do that. So whoever owns the account, that's whose money it is.
Okay.
That make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Maybe you guys aren't right to ask this, but we have a 17-year-old who has been getting SSI since he was 3, which, from everything I've been told, is extremely unusual. We applied once, immediately got it. They've never questioned it. We turn in pay stubs every month. He's always qualified. The only diagnosis he has is autism. The problem is he's going to be 18 in January. I can't remember if it's 18 or 19, if that changes. But how many hoops are we going to have to jump through to get that switched? Because I know it does, he'll still be in school. He will, actually, because of the new laws, he'll stay in high school until he's 22. But what kind of hoops are we looking at to try to keep him on SSI?
Well, when you turn 18,
Yes.
you're subject to an age 18 redetermination.
Okay.
So Social Security is not usually on time with their other reviews, but they're pretty timely on the age 18 redeterminations. They do them pretty quickly once they turn 18. So because the rules for disability are different for children and adults, so they'll have to reevaluate him under the adult criteria for disability. So it's hard to say, like, you'll have to, fill out another application, the adult disability report, which I think actually, there's a copy, there's a copy in here.
And since we'll be applying for guardianship for him though, we can, see, part of the issue is we have a 21-year-old who we don't have guardianship of, but she has a number of medical issues, hearing impairment, a multitude. She needs a medical power of attorney, I guess, but not guardianship. For him, obviously, he's going to have somebody to take care of him forever. So once we've applied as guardian, this is something that they'll do with us, is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you're the
Because for
guardian,
her,
yeah. But
We're
I
still
mean,
fighting. We've applied 5 times for her since she was 8, and it doesn't matter what we do. We've had doctor after doctor after doctor say she needs to be on getting the disability. And I'm wondering also about, like the SSDI benefits, if maybe she would qualify for that, even if she doesn't qualify for SSI.
Yeah, for that, it depends. So to qualify for SSDI, you have to have worked a certain, period of time and basically earn enough work credits, they call them, to be insured for that.
So parents' income only would count toward that if the parent's deceased, is that?
Deceased or disabled themselves and getting a Social Security benefit, or retired and getting a Social Security benefit, for the parent,
And now, when you go down to reapply for the age 18, you can ask his authorized rep as well.
Yeah.
So that they will notify
Do
you.
they need to go through guardianship, or can they just get like a healthcare and HIPAA and a general POA and still have access to all the information and be able to at least know what's going on?
As a representative payee or
Yeah.
authorized rep.
Like for Social Security purposes, you can become their payee and their representative, and then you can handle all the Social Security related business anyway. It's not gonna, apply to other situations necessarily outside of Social Security.
Social Security does redetermine everybody at some point.
Yeah.
A child, the reason that it's different between a child and an adult is a child, they're looking at life areas that they need assistance with. They're not looking at work because children aren't supposed to work. Once they become 18 though, they're looking at the work aspect of disability. So basically they may say he still has a disability, but his disability doesn't keep him from working and making substantial gainful activity. And that's kind of the difference between a child and an adult. They're looking at, okay, he's 18, can he work? And that's why it's important to keep all of the records of school records, the IEP, the PT, the OT, the doctors, all of the information that you gathered his whole life.
So at that point, they switch from SSI to SSDI, if the case would apply.
Still the H18, it would
Yeah.
just still be SSI, but you would be eligible to keep getting SSI then. as an adult.
One thing that I didn't know with my child is he worked at middle school, the janitor and got paid, he worked in high school and got paid. I didn't realize that those are all credits towards work, so now we're flipping over the SSDI part of it. I just didn't realize that we could do that, that's
And the reason that is SSDI is somebody's, he's paid into it. And so Social Security is looking at, SSI is need-based. So only the individuals who don't have a work record are getting SSI. Once you start working and paying into your quarters, an individual with a disability doesn't, like, we have to have 40 quarters. Most individuals who work their whole career have to have at least 40 quarters. An individual with a disability, depending on their age, can get SSDI in a year and a half of working if they make their quarters. And so basically, then SSI looks at SSDI and says, okay, now pay it off his own record because he's been paying into it, now he gets it out. And so a lot of times SSDI won't be 733 because he hasn't really paid that much into it. But if it's 250, then it's going to reduce the SSI payment by 250. You're still going to get the 733, but the SSI comes out of a different money. It's coming out of tax dollars, whereas the SSDI is coming out of money that somebody's put into it already. So and they always want to go to what somebody's put into it than the tax dollars. All right, well, any other questions, comments? Yes.
I actually have a few questions. So, if someone's not an actual citizen, but they're a green card, they have a disability, how or can they eventually get SSDI, and are they still eligible for SSI even if they're not eligible for SSDI?
So they're not citizens.
They're not a citizen, but they are a green card. They're legal, they're working, but they've only been here maybe a couple years.
For some reason, I'm thinking you can get SSI, but I don't know if it is. The other way. But we could, unless you know, we could research it and try to get back to you with it. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't want to try to guess on that.
And then, so for the trial work period, it says nine months within a 5-year period. So what happens after that 5 years? Does it reset? Is it completely gone? It's completely gone after the 5 years.
Well, but it's not like a set, like once it's